Good morning, everybody. We're just waiting for a few more people, but I think given we've got quite a lot to get through, we'll make a start. So thanks everybody for joining us today for the faculty town hall meeting. It's really great to see so many people, and obviously we're live streaming as well. And so hello to everybody who's on the live stream and who is watching this later after we've done it live. So today's meeting, Graham's going to do just a quick update on a few key operational issues that just to let you know about. And then we thought it would be really useful, both Gabrielle and Neil, as our Vice Deans for Teaching, Learning and Students and Research and Innovation, have been in post around 6 months now. So we thought it would be useful for them to give us some reflections and an update on their key priorities and what they've been doing. And give people obviously an opportunity to hear a bit more from them and to ask some questions. So we're going to have probably about 25 minutes of Graham, Gabrielle and Neil just giving us an update, and then we'll open the discussion. We've got some questions that people have submitted ahead of the meeting, but obviously we want to give people the opportunity to ask questions in the meeting as well. You can do that either via the chat or by raising your hand when we get to that point, and I'll remind everybody again that that's what we are going to do when we get to that point. As it says on the slide, this is your opportunity to provide feedback and raise any issues and ask any questions, so please ask there, or if you don't kind of want to ask in an open meeting, you can either directly message Ian Speakman or myself, and we'll try and respond as best we can outside of the meeting. So as I say, we're being live streamed. If people can turn off the video camera, if you don't want to be on the recording. I think we've muted most people, but if you could keep your mute on unless you are speaking, that would be really helpful. And as I said, we'll be using the chat function, but we'll also use the hands function to raise any questions. So I'll just pass straight over to Graham, who's just going to give us a brief operational update. Graham.
Thank you, Vicky, and welcome to everyone to the first town hall of the year. And I guess I'll start by saying what a year it's been. It's 12 months almost to the day since we first locked down, and we've had a lot of meetings with the Board of Governors, and I've got a meeting tomorrow looking back over the last year. And I think the summary position from the faculty, and I'll come back to at the end of my brief opening remarks, is just to say thank you and how well everyone has managed, the most unbelievable series of events that I think any of us could have imagined. So the Faculty of Biology, Medicine and Health really sort of stepped up to the plate over the last 12 months. And I know over the next 12 months it'll do exactly the same. It's been, there's a huge amount of challenges that we've faced, and we were resilient. We're mindful of the challenges going forward. But actually, I just wanted to say again, on behalf of the faculty leadership team, but also the whole university, everyone's done a great job. So thank you. So I guess the return to campus, just to move to the slides, as you'll be aware, there'll be a phased return of more students over the next few months. Gabrielle might want to pick up a bit more on this. And obviously we're, to a certain extent, waiting on government guidance, and it will be dependent on the progress of the pandemic within Manchester. And we're represented and participate in all of the sort of the local GM testing groups, so we know very well where, what infection rates are in different areas of GM and across the country, and also how rapidly the vaccination programme has been rolled out. It's highly likely that, what people on the television are calling a new normal, whatever that means, that some form of hybrid working will continue in some areas for many staff. And again, this will be dependent on availability of testing, which is pretty broad, but also balanced against the needs of researchers, teachers, people working in the area of social responsibility. So I think that's the primary area of focus, although clearly, as it always has been since the start of the pandemic and before that as well, safety and well-being of staff and students is always our first priority. And it's likely that's some form of social distancing and mask wearing, or the sort of non-pharmaceutical interventions, as they're called, are likely to remain in place for some time yet. The details of that are still being worked through at the moment. So next slide in. So the really good news is that our applications for the next academic year are encouraging. They're up against all of our sort of what we could consider our sort of competitors for both overseas and home market, which is really good actually. I think, reflecting on my initial comments, the way that we have managed and contributed to the pandemic all the way through, from basic research to students and staff going back onto the front line, to applied research, public health, research in care homes, has really encouraged many students around the country and around the world to want to study with us, which is great. The flip side of that is that our costs are also up, and we do need to ensure that the faculty as a whole is financially sustainable going forward. And it's been a difficult year with external financials, but nevertheless, you know, it's really, really important that we do this in a way that maintains that financial sustainability. I think clearly, and I'm sure many of you in the audience will appreciate the challenges of timetabling and teaching safely on a socially distanced campus, obviously for Easter, but also next academic year. And there's a huge amount of work going on at all levels of the university around this, and I'm sure there may be some questions related to this. And our online blended option for teaching and learning will continue for semester 1 of 21-22 academic year, and students may opt for our online offering and choose not to return to campus. And again, that will depend on the state of the pandemic, what the travel restrictions are as related to our international students. So we're trying to work through and manage as many of the risks and mitigate as many of them that we're aware of at the moment. Next slide in. So I guess, you know, the risks that we face as a faculty and as a university, and all of these are sector-wide, they're not just related to our faculty or the university, is obviously the ongoing impact of COVID on well-being of our staff and students, maintaining a student experience under these, you know, challenging circumstances, and also maintaining faculty finances. The other area that we're trying to manage, although it's, you know, not easy always, is the impacts of the teacher assessed grades on the admissions cycle around August time, and also how we maintain our fundamental commitment to widening participation. And it also, you know, you'll have read and seen and maybe even experienced firsthand the changes in the research funding landscape that I'm sure Neil may want to pick up. The medical charity sector is having a very challenging time financially at the moment. That's having a direct frontline impact on the type of research that we're able to deliver, and obviously funding rates going forward will be somewhat challenging. And you'll have also seen discussions in the paper about ODA funding, UKRI funding at the moment, that are subject to very live debate at the very top of government, but with no resolution at the moment. I think there are huge opportunities for the faculty. I think our future very much lies in our own hands around blended teaching and learning delivery. I think capturing what worked well and what didn't work well during the last 12 months of the COVID pandemic. You know, what was good about hybrid working? What can we maximise and optimise about our space utilisation? And I know there are many people within the schools looking at alternative sources of revenue, whether that's joint international degree programmes, an increase in an appropriately managed way of overseas students, so that we can become financially sustainable but preserving our core missions. And I think there are also opportunities in strengthening our links with the wider healthcare system, and we have established governance structures in place to do that. And I think coming out of the COVID pandemic with the unmet medical need, social care need and societal need, this is going to place FBMH at the centre of these efforts for many years to come. So next slide. And I'll finish my 5 minutes just once again to say thank you. The effort you all put in every day to contribute to the faculty in the university and Greater Manchester doesn't go unnoticed or unrecognised. And I think going forward, it's going to be really, really important that we capture the resilience and the collegiate nature that we've managed the last 12 months as we go forward into the next 12 months, and beyond that as we go to build our 5-year plans and our 10-year plans. So I will stop there, Vicky, and hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Graham. As I say, if there's any questions that people have got they'd like to pick up with Graham, if you can either put them in the chat or raise your hand towards the end, that would be really helpful. But if I can pass over to Gabrielle, who's going to talk to us around her reflections and progress 6 months in around teaching, learning and students. Gabrielle.
Thanks, Vicky. If anybody has questions, if you want to email me, put them in the chat or email me, because I'm teaching in 15 minutes. So I'll try and keep this nice and brief. So I've been here about 6-7 months now, and it's just been wanted to start with just a thanks to everybody. The teaching and the commitment of students is absolutely phenomenal. I think the UEQs, the satisfaction that we've seen from across all of our programs and the cohorts, it's been absolutely phenomenal. All of the work and the reflections that came back through our SEEPs, even just the fact that we managed to engage in such a high level evaluative process in the middle of a pandemic, I think is testament to all of the hard work and the commitment. And I wanted to just take a minute to thank all of the programme directors, our PS colleagues, our heads of teaching and learning, because we've thrown at them so many requests for information, for audits, for last minute turnaround of student comms, and they've handled it all with such diligence and professionalism. I know they're probably swearing at me, but we really do appreciate everything that you've all done there. In terms of return to campus, as you know, we've had lots of our students back from about the 8th of March. Not that many of them did leave in the first place. And this seems to be going really well. I think what we need to keep to maintain that momentum now, it's just trying to keep the messaging to students that they need to engage with routine testing, adherence to social distancing and PP measures. This is something that lots of our student reps are concerned about, that the cohort won't adhere to these things. So just trying to signpost and signal to students as much as we possibly can so that we can carry on returning as many students as possible. We have not had as much information yet from the government with regards to the post-Easter offering. As soon as we do, we'll be liaising with programmes to try and make sure that we're bringing as many students back as it's safe to do so, with lots of guidance from the Central University, but some devolved decision making within the faculty. In terms of our 2021 planning, that's what all of our programme directors are engaged with at the moment. We're doing a bit of an audit to see whether programmes will be on campus, blended learning, or continue. Obviously, we have a number of programmes that are already distance learning, particularly within PG, but to see whether some students would be able to take part in their courses remotely. This does need to be given careful consideration because obviously the UK is well ahead of the race in terms of the vaccine, but a number of our international students are in countries where there are still severe travel restrictions as well, so they may not be necessarily able to return to campus. So we're looking at all of those options as best we can. I just wanted to thank Sally Hickson and our assessment pledge working group as well, because obviously this has been a major task over the last few weeks, trying to roll out all of that as we move towards our end of year assessments and exam boards in particular. At the moment, we're undergoing 2 different compliance reviews. So there'll be lots of requests for information coming there. We've got the OFS looking at compliance across the sector with regards to teaching, but there's also a central university audit around compliance. I've just done an interview for that this morning, trying to look at how we handle our students' complaints, the marketing, all of the sort of, how we're adhering to what we advertise to students. We've got an OFS deadline of the 14th of April to work towards. The very first meeting I had when I joined Manchester was with Tony about looking at our provision within the MBCHB. And I know that this has been some staff have been quite concerned about what a review might look like, but that's underway at the moment. And I just wanted to reassure people that this review is looking at whether our early years provision matches our clinical years, because I know before I started there was a significant review to look at that. We've got John McLaughlin, who does work for UCLan, but we're hiring him on an independent basis as a member of the MLA and the GMC's committees. to look at that, to see whether our pedagogy remains fit for purpose, particularly as we navigate some of the changes and the move to a more blended delivery across many of our programmes. In terms of our progress, it's been great that we've managed to get so many task and finish groups set up. So we're really trying to look forward planning, thinking about how we can bring our strategy to fruition rather than always be in this reactionary state. So I want to thank the chairs and the members of those groups. We had a fantastic update that we're going to hopefully start to circulate more regularly across the faculty and bring to FLT from all of our chairs. Lots and lots of work. We've got so many members now. We've got lots of different subgroups. We're looking at the race discrimination. We've got an inclusive curriculum group. We've got an anti-racism group within that. So it's brilliant to see so many of our faculty engaging, and particularly our students, because we really need to show the students that this isn't tokenistic. We're absolutely committed to a positive teaching culture within the faculty. Another group that we've been asked to look at is pedagogic research. And this was quite a surprise to me, given that we're in the middle of a pandemic, everybody's really tired, people are desperate for a break. But I think it just demonstrates the thirst within the faculty for many of our teachers to do better always, to evaluate and to make sure that Manchester is on the map and that we're shouting about the wonderful pedagogy that we do engage with. Hopefully lots of you will have seen that your colleagues received our pandemic pedagogy awards that Caroline Boucher helped bring to fruition. So we really are, we're seeing wonderful examples of fantastic pedagogy across the faculty. So just a plea really to ask people to keep engaging with the task and finish groups. We've got lots of different groups popping up, trying to address different areas of student need, of the strategy, of our APP, disability commitments. And I guess the only other major update is that we are reviewing the Health Education England national contract at the moment. The sign off for that has been pushed from April to June, July time. So we're just doing our sort of legal due diligence at the moment and working with, particularly with K School, where there are lots of programmes that interfaces with. So I think that's probably a quick tour of all the headlines. As I say, I am going to teach in a second, so I will pick up any questions afterwards. Thanks, Vicky.
Okay, thanks, Gabrielle. I mean, there is one quick question in the chat around periodic reviews and whether they're still on hold for the foreseeable future. I don't know whether that's one to pick up outside of the meeting.
I haven't had any communications to say that they are back on, but I will certainly find out and get back to Fiona.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that's for the time being, we haven't heard anything to suggest they're back on, so they're off for the time being, at least anyway. Okay, thank you. So we've got a couple of questions in the chat, which is great, so we'll come back to those in a minute, but if I can just move on to Neil to give us an update around research and innovation, please.
Hi, can someone move the slides on one? Thanks. So I was, I'm not going to cover too much in great detail, but very happy to take questions. I think Graham mentioned some of the challenges out there, and to be honest, I'm not going to dwell on those because I think, as ever, as researchers, we can only apply for the grants that are advertised. But there is a challenge around ODI, and we put out a message last week that anyone who's feeling affected by that, James Evans is coordinating that centrally. It is I think it's a bit of a bellwether. I mean, it'll be interesting to see just what happens across the board on these things, but you can tell UKRI is feeling the pinch. Graham also mentioned the charity sector. So I was going to kind of touch on a few bits we've been doing, a few of the challenges that, to be honest, have kind of always been there, but have certainly come to light recently, had a light shone on them, and then maybe just talk a little bit about some bullet points of where I think the next few months are heading. So I think everyone in the meeting knows about the issue over overheads and cost recovery off grants that inevitably pay salaries around the faculty, keep the faculty going. And I think, so this is not, having been the recipient of charity grants, this isn't to denigrate them, but it's also just to shine a light and realize the value of UKRI funding, commercial funding that brings in contribution. The contribution we get off our grant income runs at roughly about 10% of the total grant income. And it is a challenging area at the moment. So I think it can't be overemphasized how important it is that if you're thinking about applying to UKRI, please do. And also the importance of costing a grant to the best possible extent and outcome. And again, I say that not naively. I hold a couple of MRC grants, and so I know the challenge of where you want to fit within an envelope, but costing properly is really important. And I suspect there's going to be a bit more work done on that down at divisional level with people coming out from finance in terms of trying to get the message over. It is very much a kind of a team affair. We're all on the same team with that. So just as some headlines, which again we will put out soon. They're in my inbox, and I just need to finalise the sort of the comms around it. But just, I know people like to see where we are, where we sit, what we hold, and some people feel we sort of should have been doing more of that. So I'm going to start doing more of that. We are strong for BBSRC. If you strip out the Rosalind Institute from Edinburgh as a standalone BBSRC institute that comes under the university's total, we would be around top for BBSRC, maintaining a position that's been really strong over the last decade. However, we have seen a drop in our MRC income. We're exploring possibilities for why that is, but we've got to try and reverse that. And I think we've set up a few initiatives to try and do that. And then the other big issue that's happening at the moment is the renewal of the BRC and how we can maximise that for the benefit of the whole faculty and platforms and build a pump priming sort of mentality around that. Lots of you will have contributed to the survey we did before Christmas that has precipitated a bit of a structural refresh of how we do R&I, how we run R&I in the faculty. We've now established a rejuvenated, what was FRG, Faculty Research Group, into a board, including innovation as well as research. That is constituted with the new AD posts, Associate Dean posts we've created, currently at interim status, but will be advertised later in spring, early summer, in biological science, health science, medical science. Two things are important here. Firstly, this moves away from the nature of being potentially siloed, or the risk of being potentially siloed in a school, to consider these topics across the whole faculty, and also explicitly includes innovation in their brief, recognising that Innovate UK is a major funder within UKRI. Mike White has come in as director of the Fellowship Academy, brought a new impetus for our early career researchers, intermediate fellows, and has set about reaching into every division within every school to try and create a much stronger network there. That's been very welcome, fully supported him. I'm really thrilled by the progress he's making. And I mentioned the survey. I have the summary document is in my inbox. I'm going to go through, make a few edits, and we will get that out, including scores for all the sections. So that is imminent. I'm sorry it's taken a few months since Christmas, but other things have got in the way, I'm afraid, but we will get that out. Next slide. So this is my second slide, last slide. Just to talk a little bit about where I think the next few months will certainly keep me busy, and some of the opportunities. I'm kind of struck across the three topic areas of biological science, medical science, health science, about kind of marrying that up with funder opportunities. And we're exploring something around discovery science that tries to build on our strength at BBSRC on a bigger footing. Comorbidities is a priority for MRC, and Andy Trafford has been taking a lead on that as one of the associate deans, and we're trying to push that. And then health equality is emerging as a big topic in Greater Manchester, but we have a lot of strength in this area, and I'm wondering whether we can align a lot of our strengths, particularly around health sciences, into this sort of direction. So I think that kind of emphasises that I would like us as a faculty to be quite ruthless in how we target funder priorities and calls in good time. And then also I've been having meetings with the philanthropy team about whether we can create some real sort of go-getting foci for philanthropy into the faculty across those three topics at the top. And I think in doing that, one of the things that struck me is kind of the need to be able to describe what it is that we've discovered. That probably also touches on how we present ourselves in web pages, which is always a bit of a challenge. And I think this is actually something that's really important. And I want to spend a bit of time on this over the next few months, really trying to capture what it is we have done. If you were the general public, what would we be telling them about what we've discovered? And what problems can we solve that other places can't? Just so we try and align ourselves as a whole faculty in directions that then kind of best describe what we do, but also give us the best opportunity for larger sums of funding. And I'm just going to close on an area again over the next few months I want to push on, and that's improving our commercial relationships. So this isn't a bad word. Industry funding's not second class to anything else. It's critically important. And I've been working closely with Andy Wilkinson in the Innovation Factory, which is a relaunch of UMIT, about how we might engage more closely. And I've also started the process of trying to find key people within major global industries to bring in as honorary contract members of the faculty, so we can actually embed some of these people alongside our researchers and develop relationships that in time will lead to Innovate UK funding. I think that's me.
Okay, thanks, Neil. That's great. Thank you very much. So we've got a few questions in the chat. And the first couple are related, and they're also related to a couple of questions that we had submitted before the meeting, which were essentially around what our expectations should be around how we work, and should we be looking more at hybrid working? Are we changing the flexible working policy? You know, what should we do about that? So I'm going to ask Heather Graham, our head of HR, if she can update us on where the university's thinking is around all of this, please.
Thanks, Vicky. Yes, so quite a few questions on this. I think they probably cover similar points. So certainly the university is sort of aware that we do need to look at what's happened over the last year, take the best from that and learn from that experience. So there is a group of people that has been in place for I guess a couple of months now, that is looking at the current flexible working policy, but also looking at the concept of hybrid working and what we do around that in the future. And although I'm not directly involved in that, my understanding is that I think what's being considered very seriously is not just reverting back to what we did pre-COVID, as if, you know, nothing had changed, and really learning from some of the things that have worked well, but also mindful that you know, there've been other challenges, and also that individuals, you know, it's quite different for different people, isn't it? And we also have to factor in quite a number of different staff groups, where there are quite different needs and requirements for those groups. So it's actually quite a complex piece of work. The group is taking a lot of feedback from staff, from faculties, other parts of the university. So it's well informed, and it's working through all of that information. And I think the starting point, which they're expecting to issue, I think before Easter, but that'll be next week, so maybe just after Easter, is a sort of set of principles, and then a sort of more detailed policy and procedure will follow. I think there's a couple of questions about, will there be management guidance? Yes, absolutely, there will be management guidance. I don't know whether that will extend it to sort of training or briefing sessions. It may well do. I think that once the policy has been finalised, there'll be a lot of work for us to do in the faculty, because it won't be possible to produce a one size sort of fits all. So there'll be a lot of discussions that will need to take place across different parts of the faculty as to how we actually put this in practice. And my expectation will be that, yes, there will be roles where hybrid working, so a combination of working from home and coming into the office or the lab or whatever, will be possible, but it may not be possible for everybody. And the overriding principle will be that it's actually, you know, we put in place what's needed in terms of the business requirements, and that's sort of absolutely key, really. I think it's sort of just a point to stress. I would expect that managers will be speaking with individuals and individual preferences will be taken into account, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that would be possible to sort of you know, give everybody what they want. And I think there was some indication in one of the questions that people might want to sort of work permanently, you know, from home, whether that's full or part-time. You know, again, that will depend on the circumstances. And I think what I would sort of caution individuals against is maybe making sort of significant plans in terms of where you live, for example, before we've actually had some further discussion around this. And one thing just to mention there is we will shortly be undertaking an audit in terms of people who work overseas. And so if anybody's actually thinking of that, or they're doing it and they haven't currently mentioned that, those, you know, those arrangements need to sign off at head of school and dean level. And that's because it's actually working overseas is actually very, very complicated from a sort of, well, personal and corporate tax point of view, as well as pensions. So we'll be writing out about that shortly. So I don't know if that answers the questions, because there were several sort of aspects, but yeah, yes, there is a policy and procedure and guidance being developed. I think it's pretty much there in terms of sort of high level principles, but quite a bit of work to do because it is actually, it's very complex. So I would suggest that, you know, people start thinking about that, whether they're a manager of a team, whether they're an individual, so that you know, you've got some thoughts as and when we come to have those discussions. So yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to add anything.
Okay, thanks Heather. Jane has put in the chat that there's also a blog and an update that Patrick Hackett did on StaffNet, I think a week or so ago, which I think is quite helpful. I think just the other thing, just probably to add to that, is that obviously we need to think about kind of the logistics of people work. I mean, not everybody knows what the issues have been about the logistics of working from home over the past year, but I think we've got to think about kind of what those kind of broader expectations are around IT and what gets supported by the university and what's an expectation of staff. So it's not just about business need and individuals, it's also about all those other infrastructural kind of issues that sit around it as well. We've got a slightly raised question from Jane Crosby around what we've learned or learning from the pandemic. And I'm going to ask our heads of school if they could just reflect briefly on kind of the sort of what we think we've learned and are learning that are an opportunity to carry on once things change again. So Tony, if I can come to you first, please.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I think the immediate response that I felt I wanted to give was that we learned what an amazing set of staff we have in terms of the way everybody came together and looked for solutions so that we could continue to operate, both first off as a faculty, then from a teaching, and then from a research perspective. And I think the second thing that I would say is that we change things overnight. And I think some things worked, some things didn't work, but I don't think that the situation will ever go back to where it was before, because we found novel and exciting new ways to deliver programs for education and perhaps new ways of doing our research and new themes to research. So although I don't think it's been a completely negative time.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Judith, anything to add to that?
I would agree strongly with Tony. I think I've been amazed by how adaptable and agile staff have been in really challenging times. They've been able to continue with their teaching, deliver teaching in a novel way. Research has continued. We've still seen huge successes in the research arena with large grant income coming in from various sources. And I think what we need to do is try and be positive and think, actually, we can't go back to how we were. We need to go forward, take the best practice that we've done and enhance it going forward. And I think as a school, that's what we want to do, is actually learn from this, take forward best practice and actually change things for the better for staff.
Okay, thanks. Kay?
Yeah, again, been very impressed by my colleagues. We weren't that quick off the start, certainly in terms of process when we first, about a year ago, when we went home to work. But we've got much better at that. Hopefully it's been less painful. Colleagues, well, everybody who does teaching, which most of us have learnt so much. And I think we can, like everybody else has said, we'll carry some of this forward. Hopefully not some of the exam problems that we seem to be having to deal with now, which have created a lot of work, and thanks to everybody who's dealing with that. But I think we've got to get our students as partners involved in teaching and learning. And what I have picked up talking to my programme directors and to Jason Hall, the UG director in SHS, is that the evaluations seem to be splitting. The first years are a bit more open-minded than the higher years who've had the traditional learning experience. So we've really got to be serious about students as partners when we work out what are the really good things to keep, maybe what we should go back and change. And like everybody else has said, you know, the ref goes in a few days' time, and that has been a tremendous effort. The ref teams and everybody have just continued like we were here. And I was fortunate that Roger Webb, who's one of the UOA2 leads, shared the list of COVID papers with me last week. And what a fabulous amount of work that we've done and achieved. You know, this was from a standing start, you know, a year ago, phenomenal work by so many people. And again, everybody's just pulled together and helped each other. And what I've really been impressed with, you know, on the Zoom room, staff are looking out and looking after each other. They're having those virtual tea breaks and making sure that everybody's okay. And I think we've probably got stronger team working as a result of this, which I certainly want to keep.
Great, thanks, Kate. I mean, I think absolutely I'd reflect that from a kind of PS perspective. The thing that's been great for me is just how well everyone's kind of really mucked in and been really flexible and worked well together at a time where it's been, I think we all recognise, it's been really challenging for a lot of people. But people have just absolutely stepped up and done things, and I think we really need to make sure. I am slightly worried that we'll kind of slip back into old ways a little bit, and we need to just think about what that means for all of us. I've got a specific question around consultation on the new kind of hybrid working from home policy. So it might be helpful just to, I suspect we would like to you know, speak to people about this, but I think the timescales are going to be really challenging for us, because we do need to have something that's there and workable. You know, if you look at the government's roadmap, they're talking at 21st of June as a kind of another key point around kind of expectations of where people are going to be. So we have got a challenge of timing just to kind of work through the next couple of months and where we're expecting to be. And there's an awful lot that's still up in the air. So I think we will try and get information and discuss it with people. But I think there will be a limit to what we can do around that. And Heather's just put in the chat, staff have been invited to engage. Formal consultation will take place with the trade unions as usual with new policies. Neil, there's a couple of questions on research. One from Simon Luckman around, because of issues with income, is the faculty, this isn't, well, it's not really a research question, is it? But I'm asking you, is the faculty going to reassess recruitment, career progression and teaching contribution in areas which are traditionally strong in bringing in BBSRC, MRC and industry funding? And there's another question about, can we just have a quick update on REF? So could you pick those up, please?
Yeah, so the first one's quite a complex question. And I think my reflection would be, yes, I would agree with that. I think the complexity is the way we currently are structured to go about that, because what you've described cuts across the whole faculty. And so you're cutting into sort of budget planning that currently takes place at school level. So it's quite challenging under the way we are currently structured to have Gabrielle kind of looking over the teaching, myself looking over the R&I from a faculty perspective. But I think that's just, I think it's a bit like the pandemic as a whole. It's like shining a light on what we do, isn't it? And you sort of see the pressure points. So I think that is it's something we need to look at, because at the moment, I don't think we've quite got the way of doing things to facilitate that. I also think it's relevant, and Tony may add to it, with regard to things like undergraduate medicine, there is a review going on about how we teach that, which I think is a good thing. I think it's great with regards to the likes of PBL, because I think people want to do quality teaching aligned to what it is they're doing. And so some of the things I think could maybe be done more efficiently. So that would be my comment about that one.
Okay, Tony, is there anything you want to add? It's probably also worth saying that we have got a group that's looking at kind of the high level kind of expectation and academic endeavour, so that we can absolutely kind of pick up some of these challenges that Neil's been talking about the way we kind of look at this right across the faculty, in the context of the overall challenges that we've got. And we know there is unevenness in the expectations that we have across different areas. So it will never be absolutely everybody has the same number of hours, but there are some things that we can do, I think, to have a look at that. Tony, did you want to add anything about the MB or anything else?
Well, Gabrielle did make reference to the fact that the review starts. In fact, it starts today, and I will be speaking with John McLachlan myself this afternoon. But I mean, just to throw a flavour into it, I mean, once you've got a blended learning programme, why not look at it in an innovative context? So I could imagine that we could have grand rounds on a virtual basis, and real patients engaged on the screen. So I mean, just one or two things. So we could extend PBL rather than worry about getting rid of it. We should be using it as a tool and moving things forward. And I would want to reiterate what Gabrielle said and reassure the staff. This is not about changing or getting rid of staff or anything like that, sinister wise. It's about making sure we're doing things in the right way for 2021 and onwards.
Okay, thanks, Tony. So Neil, the other question was about REF. A quick update on where we are with REF.
Well, I think Kay kind of summarised it. It's going in. So I think it's been a monumentally large piece of work. I'm seeing if there's any more detail in the question. I'm just scrolling back through the chat. I don't see it. Yeah, I mean, it's going in. Huge effort by everyone. The internal prediction is that it looks positive, and as ever, we'll have to wait and see how whether the panels agree with us.
I've just realised it was a direct question to me, which is why no one else can see it. It just says, can you ask Neil about an update to the REF?
If there was anything more specific, I'd try and answer it, but it's going in.
So Simon's responded back on the academic kind of contribution. It is being sorted at faculty level. We're looking at it across the faculty.
I think that there is. Where's the?
It's a final comment in the chat.
So, but being open. I think there is more we can do. Having come into this and you look and, how we could go about doing things, I think there is lots more to do across the faculty. I mean, in a sense, that's why I wanted to move the directors of school research into being AD roles with a bit more freedom to roam, because I think the way the faculty was constructed, if we think back 4 or 5 years, was to be explicit about making sure no one school was a kind of siloed thing. So inevitably, by design, we have cross-cutting skills in there. And so to maximize those skills, be it grant income, be it how we teach, I think it has to cut across the faculties a little bit. The other point I would make is I mentioned the commercial contracting. The guy I spoke to last week was based in the States, in Pittsburgh, works for GE Healthcare, is the go-to person for the Oxford AI Imaging Centre. He's actually now started contributing and teaching a little bit on an Oxford CDT. This is the sort of enriching of the experience that I'd love us to try and bring in with some of these things.
Actually, Vicky, just to jump in about the cross-faculty work, I think that's precisely what the faculty is for. And actually the thing that we've pulled together, whether it's, the specific question was about research, about the rapid response group, is that we coordinated cross-faculty working, cross-university working and cross-GM working and plugged it into national programs. So we've shown that we can do it. We will do it, and it's capturing that, building on that to make sure as we return more to, normal operations, that we make sure we keep pushing through on that. So actually, I think that's one of the great opportunities and strengths that we've shown through the last 12 months of COVID. And I think we have our structures in place, and Neil's going to be working through that with other faculty colleagues, and that's why we have a faculty.
Yeah. I think the other thing, Simon sort of said about income, we are looking much more at both income and contribution. I mean, Neil kind of raised this point that, we bring in an overall contribution of about 10% on research. We need to look at our contribution and our income in the round, but we've also got to understand how much things are costing us better. And that's one of the key things that we're looking at in the context of the 5-year plan, and the financials will tell you some of that, but our activity and the quality of what we do will also tell you some of that. And we have absolutely got to look at that in the round to understand what it is that we need to absolutely keep investing and supporting, and the areas which are more of a challenge for us and that we need to have a look at. Because, I think we said right at the beginning that we do have financial challenges. We had those pre-COVID. And we do have to utilise the data and the information and everything else that we've got to be able to have a more informed conversation about that.
So, Vicky, because I've just seen the last bit of the question. I mean, I've been in post since September, Simon. So I'm trying my best. The bit about the data that's starting to flow is grant income that is not just school-based. It gets down into divisions, and so that we can start to see on divisions. One of the latest conversations I've had with Sinead is about income per capita, because not all divisions are the same size. And then also about contribution at that granularity as well, because I think it is really important. The bit that I think is really challenging to get after is income by geography. Because I'm also aware in the way we construct our buildings and how we interact, we don't actually interact just within our divisions, but actually cognate groupings that exist that are really strong span divisions. It's actually quite hard to capture that. But I actually, if you're intimating you think we should, then I agree with you. I think we need to start capturing income around groups of PIs that function well together and working out why they function well together, and getting them to go after the bigger rewards together, be that an MRC program, be that the physics of life call that hopefully will come out, be that interdisciplinary work about how we work with FSE.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. There's a question about consultation on the review of the MB. I think, Tony, that will that information will come out about who John is talking to and who you're consulting about the review of the MB.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. There's a question about testing. There's one that, as Caroline Bausch has noted, we were asked about this morning and in another meeting, and we didn't have an answer to, about what should we do about coming in for the 2 tests if you're only then making the journey, and especially for the second test. So we're going to try and get some clarity about that. But then another comment from Emma about which COVID test are being offered. It is the lateral flow test. We've asked exactly the same question about why can't we do it ourselves. Secondary school kids can do it themselves, but apparently university employees and students can't. So we are having an ongoing conversation about whether we can move to people doing the tests at home. But that's quite early stages at the moment. We've only actually got the contract until just after Easter as well. So again, there's an ongoing negotiation about what's happening beyond that point, about expectations of testing as people come back. Comment from Bruce, thank you. Second test does not have to be booked 3 days after the first. You can book the second for when you're next on campus. So I think that makes more sense. Okay, so I think we've picked up everything pretty much that was in the chat one way or another, which is helpful. I'm going to ask Peter Clayton just to just give us some reflections on his own kind of experiences and some of the questions that we've been dealing with this morning, and then I'll pass over to Graham to wrap up. Peter.
Okay, thanks very much, Vicky, and hello to everybody. I suppose my main reflection is that I think in a time of great uncertainty, and I think we all agree that's what's happened over the last year, there are actually some certainties that remain. And those certainties for us in university is that we're here to train the next generation of life scientists and healthcare workers. And it's reassuring that the numbers of students who are applying to our courses remains very strong, both nationally and from Europe and internationally. So that core role remains absolutely key, and we must never lose sight of that. I think our other core role in terms of research and innovation, and we've heard much from Neil this morning, is key. We have to remember that the research that we do, the discoveries that we make, do make a difference to people's lives. And that's been amply illustrated over the last year. And I think that innovation side of things is going to be absolutely critical to how we as not just the university and a region, but also how the country recovers from an economic point of view. And we know how strong we are as a country in that life sciences area. And I think I'd also like to come back to some of the comments about sort of cross-faculty, working across our own faculty. But actually one of the things that we've learned and we're wanting to put into practice, actually we had arranged a meeting this time last year with the other faculties as to how we could work more effectively across the 3 faculties to achieve our aims around research and innovation and how we do our teaching. And I think also the last year we've always had good relationships into the NHS and into the city and the city council in general, but it's brought us that bit closer together. And that's kind of joint working, which was mentioned in the chat about could we take some of those lessons of making decisions quickly and effectively? Yes, we certainly can. But actually that tighter working with the NHS in terms of both training and research is something that we need to hold very dear to us as a faculty, and certainly is an area that we're working hard on. So I think those, just Vicky, covering those kind of few areas are my reflections. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. So Graham, over to you, last couple of minutes.
Brilliant. So I'll be brief, and following on from all the comments and questions and presentations, I think this has been a very useful town hall. I hope people that are here have found it useful. I think clearly what we have done over the last 12 months, and we need to keep doing over the next 12 months and beyond, is maximising sort of the impact and the importance of what we do, whether that's in research, teaching and scholarship, social responsibility. It really needs to be best in class. So really striving for, you know, the huge importance and demonstrating that to others is what we're going to have to focus on. I think the other thing that's come through very strongly through COVID, and we really need to hold on to, is that ethos of teamwork, because I think that's how we build resilience. And there's a risk as the economics get tighter, as they undoubtedly will, is that we fall apart into different silos. And I think if we do that, then we're going to be very challenged as a faculty in a university to deliver on our key strategic ambitions. And I think that teamwork, resilience and well-being, and focusing on maximising the importance of what we do all comes together in our focus that we need to do more on, and we need to continue to look at, of staff and student well-being. Because if we don't look after our staff and our students, then we have nothing. So I'm going to leave it there. The faculty leadership team and myself will do everything we can in all of this regard. We're always happy to have whatever feedback at whatever time of day or night we receive it, and we'll do our best to take your comments on board and move forward in a consensus driven way built around all of those fundamental principles that, you know, what the faculty stands for.
Okay, thanks, Graham. That's a good point to finish on. Thank you very much for your time, everybody, today. I hope it's been helpful. As Graham says, if people have got any other questions or any comments, then please let us know, please feedback. But take care, and thank you all very much for everything you do for the faculty. Thank you.